XRP has taken a bit of a downturn yesterday in line with the rest of the crypto market, but obviously has now changed what we were expecting to see in the next kind of couple of days or so. So today we're going to take another look at the technical analysis on XRP, and I'll be sharing my thoughts and opinions as to where I think that price action is heading next. As I get into today's video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button. If you're new, subscribe, and let's take a look at XRP's price action. So here we have XRP paired up with USDT. We're on the 1 hour Binance chart. Now we were looking for a push higher to the 60.24 cents to 60.74 cents, this little area up here. Now the kind of wave 5 expectations were to kind of tap into the range between 59.68 and 61.07, right? We did tap into this range on Saturday at 2300 hours, and well, it looks like that is it. We were hoping to go up one more time based on kind of the structure of what we were seeing, but I must have miscounted the wave structure, and obviously we now see the break to the downside. As I often say, we look for these kind of bearish positions to kind of start forming out, and that's exactly what we kind of saw here. Okay, so we started to see support of the 50 EMA, 50 SMA. Then we saw this got lost yesterday at the 1900 hours. We then saw support being found briefly on the 50 EMA, the blue line, at the 2000 hours, but ultimately we saw a bearish close again coming in here at 2100 hours. That would have been where we would have kind of looked for the short position, stop loss above the 50 SMA, target out 1.5 on the risk reward ratio, as you guys know by now, and that would have been some easy profit right there. If we were super bearish on the market, we could have targeted out the 200 EMA, and it would have been a 2.65 risk reward ratio. Of course, if I were to be trading something like that, I would be using 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗕𝗪𝗓. You guys know this by now. Links in the description if you haven't already signed up to them. Guys, check them out. I don't think you'll regret it. Some fantastic sign-up bonuses as well for new users of those exchanges. 𝗕𝗪𝗓's a non-KYC exchange. 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗓 is a KYC exchange. Both I use for various different purposes, spot and leverage. I find them very easy to use, self-intuitive platforms. And if you're looking to trade XRP, those are the ones to go to, in my opinion. So go ahead and check them out. But here you can see this big move to the downside on XRP's price action. Now, it's interesting, this structure. It has the idea of an impulsive movement to the downside. As we can kind of see right inside here, we've hit into that 1.618 area. The issue that I have is we don't see a nice clean structure in that initial move. It more mirrors the idea of a three-wave correction. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump down into the 5-minute time frame and just analyze what that drop actually looks like on the smaller time frames, because it can be quite misleading at times as to whether or not we are impulsive or whether or not we are just, corrective. So the first thing we need to do is we need to ascertain, where do we sit with this? Are we in these kind of impulsive breakdowns or not? And it doesn't really fit. The only way that this is going to fit is through the idea of some kind of diagonal based pattern. And to do that, we need to measure the wave 3. Okay, the wave 3 is never allowed to be the smallest wave in diagonal contracting or expanding diagonals, which are the ones that we would have to look for in here. And in this particular case, it's not, and this would actually classify itself as an expanding diagonal. And I think that's the one that we're going to have to kind of look at through this kind of idea. And I'm going to show you why that is just here. So if we kind of draw this in right inside here, you can see it kind of expands out. It's not much, but it does expand. Wave 5 is the largest wave. Wave 3 is not the smallest, and wave 1 is the smallest. Okay, so it would look like this: wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wave 4 is allowed to intersect with wave 1. Okay, it doesn't, but it's allowed to in this particular scenario. A nice cleaner example of this, and I've drawn this out before, but I'll draw it again right now just so that you guys can see what a clean example would look like, rather than this kind of idea of one that isn't as clean, as you'd have a small wave 1, a wave 2, a bigger wave 3, a wave 4 that would intersect with wave 1, and then a big wave 5. And that would be your expanding diagonal in a really clean kind of way of looking at it. We don't have a clean version of it, but that is what I think is going on here, because it's the only way to kind of consider what is happening at this side over here. Okay, so if I roll this back up into our hourly chart, okay, and we kind of take a look at that, what's going on? Well, we've hit the 1.618, which means we're in the wave 4 now, okay, and the wave 4 would typically retrace 38.2%, which is where it's approximately kind of positioning itself right now at 57.1, but it can rally up as high as the wave 1 low, okay, so we would have this kind of idea that the price should reverse within this area between that kind of 57.1 and 58.09 cents, okay. I'll remove the fibs and you can see the yellow area here. That means that we're looking for probably rejection from the 50 EMA, 50 SMA areas, and we shouldn't really see, I mean, it's possible if we were to see a really deep wave 5 suddenly appear, that this is whole entire structure is another expanding diagonal. That's a possibility. And the wave 1 is obviously shorter than the wave 3, but we have hit 1.618. So we do look for impulsive breakdowns rather than anything else. That means that we want to be thinking about short positions, not long positions. Even though we found brief support on the 200 EMA, the suspicion is that we lose that on this 1 hour time frame for XRP. So we want to be thinking about that 50 EMA, 50 SMA situation, and we probably want to put the stop loss higher than the 50 SMA, and we'll want to look for a 1.5, obviously, on the minimum expectations, which I do like, but this is quite clearly going to be a bigger move in itself. So we could be looking for a double bottom with what we had seen previously around that kind of 55.41 to get things started. So the message here is that we're going to be seeing more volatility and that we should be thinking about more bearishness before we get into those bullish reliefs. But we are looking for a relief rally. If we do complete out this idea of a 5-wave drop here, and that would look like this, okay, then if I draw that in the correct area like so, then of course we will be looking for a relief rally. That relief rally will probably take us up quite high. I'd have thought, retesting some of these previous areas of resistance, maybe out towards kind of 58 cents. And then from there, we will be looking for another 5-wave drop to the downside. Okay, so we want to be aware of those things. Is it possible that all of this is a part of a flat correction? Yes, we have the ability to say that actually we might still be in the wave 4 and all of this is a flat correction. I just don't think that's realistic considering the rules that would follow a flat correction. We'd have to see 335 and I don't see that. I see 5 in that 5-wave movement. So very irregular if that were to be the case. But for the most part, we expect a little bit more of a push to the upside on the 1 hour time frame, somewhere between 57.1 and 58.09. Then we look to get rejected from the 50 EMA, 50 SMA, and then we break on down from there. We shouldn't cross higher than the 58.09 unless, of course, we see some kind of expanding diagonal, and that would be very, again, irregular in the way that we see the chart, but again, something that we need to consider at the same time. That would basically allow us to have a really, really bearish 5th wave move down here that is even deeper than the wave 3 that we've just seen. Okay, so that can obviously do a lot of damage to retail investors who are leverage-based trading in long positions, for example. Okay, let's roll this up into a daily because obviously we have been talking about the idea that we are still looking to retest the lower trend line. We were hoping to kind of do that much earlier. We haven't done so. At the moment, we are still finding support on the daily 50 SMA, the yellow line. Okay, this big move yesterday we found support so far today on the 50 EMA, the blue line, and we are still closing at the moment, as it looks at the point of recording today's video, above the 50 SMA. So it still looks quite strong on the daily time frame, but obviously there's a lot of volatility that can be seen in here, and ultimately I think we are still likely to test out that lower trend line in and around 51 cents, maybe even lower. And as I said before, with everything that's going on with the interest rates, we are still potentially going to be looking at losing 50 cents as a support level and moving down with some crazy wicks into some existing lows. It doesn't break our structure. Obviously, I was talking about this yesterday. We are still bullish on this daily time frame for XRP. We are still looking for 75 to 85 cents, but in order for that to kind of play out, we do, of course, need to remain above 38.23. Anything lower than 38.23 cents is going to change our structure. It's going to break that bullish structure that we have mapped out here. Anything lower than 40 3.19 will lower our expectations. So currently our expectation is 75 cents. Anything lower, the 43.19, is basically just going to lower that to maybe like 70 cents or something to that effect. Now, from our momentum indicator, you can see here that we have plenty of momentum to the downside on XRP's price action. So we're only barely just starting this correction, and that's kind of what's being indicated right here. So although there's still potential for a few relief rallies in places, we are ultimately still looking very, very bearish on the daily time frame. Turn off the stochastic and bring on the divergence indicator. We are showing some interesting volatility. We're above the mid-level, so the relative strength index is actually bullish, but it isn't the first time that we've seen this. We've seen this twice already before, where we get up to this kind of level and ultimately we break on back down lower than 50. So the relative strength index is about a trend, and ultimately we're tracking a bit of a bearish trend, not a bullish trend on the smaller time frames. And so I suspect that we're still likely to see bigger corrections. The difference between the stochastic RSI and the relative strength index, the RSI, is that the stochastic RSI is significantly more sensitive to price action, indicating when you see these kind of swings in the market. Now, the relative strength index is great for a trend on a bigger macro picture, and it shows that actually we're in big bullish movements to the upside on a macro, which is fine, but we have to appreciate there's still a lot more volatility to be seen, and that's what the stochastic RSI is telling us, whereas the relative strength index doesn't give you that kind of level of detail. Now, the volume profiles are also quite interesting. As we're pushing up here, the volumes were decreasing. As we've just had this little mini dump, the volumes are still quite low. So the market is quite undecided on kind of which direction to kind of take things in. Okay, so as it sits right now, the market is very, very close to kind of seeing a breakdown and a confirmed breakdown, but also the bulls could still potentially try to prevent that. So keeping a close eye on this daily time frame. Obviously, we're still bullish, but I suspect we are likely to see breakdowns considering everything that's going on with the Federal Reserve's interest rate decision and what that could mean for the markets with expected volatility, etc. So XRP, it's been great little moves over the last few days or so. It's a shame that we couldn't quite reach that extra little push to the upside, but it does look like the top is in, and we are now looking for more moves to the downside even on the daily time frame. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, or join us in our free Discord server. We'd love to hear from you. If you're new, subscribe, and if you haven't done so, smash that like button and check this video out right here. It's not one you're going to want to miss.